Welcome back to Navigating the Healing Path podcast. We are so grateful to be here today, beginning to explore the not so fun side of the healing journey, but incredibly valuable to plumb the depths of your shadow. So we're going to be embarking today on a journey to go into the shadow side, into the shadow self, and discuss ego programs, the triggers, the things that run us in our minds, our personal experiences, and even some of our own programs ourselves that we have been working on and how we have learned to manage them over the years. So if this interests you, please stay with us. We can't wait to have you. Well, thank you all for joining us. Let's take a moment and connect. I love this. So just take a deep breath. And just bring your consciousness down into your body, into your heart. And one more. This always helps me feel connected and a little more grounded, a little more open. It's easier to receive from this place. It's a good time to let go of anything that's distracting you so that you can be present to this moment, the breath. So thank you.
Thank you.
So the shadow work in general, my understanding, and please share with me your understanding of this as well, but the idea of like the work with the shadow work is all the parts of us that are undesirable, that we were told were undesirable. This is not necessarily the truth. Somebody's ability to speak up for themselves and call shit out and be like, that's wrong, that's going to be taught to them that that's wrong. So then they're going to be like, oh no, they're going to repress that. They're going to, there's so many things that you can do with that kind of conditioning, silencing themselves and feeling like that for me, it was like my truth hurts. So I can't speak my truth because people leave me when I do that, or they don't want to be around me because they feel bad about themselves. Because it's not easy to look at yourself when you're hurting somebody. Nobody wants to look at that. It fucking sucks. And taking responsibility for how you show up and how you treat people, that is not easy.
Takes a lot of accountability.
It does.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy to be with that and to process it, but we're not perfect. And there's a program right there. The ego programs. But before we move on to all that, but how do you view shadow work? What do you think that is?
I feel like the last few years, as I've really been on this path for myself, I've seen the word thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I used to have the impression that shadow work is like something that you can just like hyper focus on for like a short period of time. And like somehow you can do these journaling entries that you see on like a short video online that's like, here's a great journal for shadow work. But like if that's for a period of time, like that's all I was seeing about it. And I feel like it kind of gave me the impression that it was almost easier or like more short term than I feel like it is now to my perception. I think I also used to think that something like the Dark Night of the Soul, it like everybody gets one. Like it's one main big
and done.
Yeah. Like this one big main event. And you'll know when it's happening and it's going to be horrible, but it's the hero's journey and you go into it and you come out the other side and you're good to go. So that's how I feel like it, kind of how I used to view it. I'm not really sure how I would define it now. It's a part of me, I think, has a little bit of a hesitancy to the word, I guess, because I feel like it doesn't get the respect that it really deserves, or like the true nature of it, I feel like isn't getting properly expressed online with these like short spirituality videos. And I really feel like it gives the wrong impression. But I do really resonate with what you had said with your definition of it. It just feels like bringing light and bringing compassion and love into the parts of ourselves that we once rejected in order to bring those pieces back together and to bring us into a deeper sense of wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a linear journey.
No.
And it's not just a few years of a dark night of the soul, or it's not a couple journal entries and all of a sudden you can just be aware right out the gate of what your shadow is. It's this, it can be long, or it can be short. I don't know. I feel like it just depends on the person. It depends what they're here to do and what their soul has signed up for facing. But I think for each of us, it's more our shadow gets unfolded and shown to us across a period of time, and when it gets triggered from other people or experiences that happen to us. And it's just this long unfolding.
I really like how you put that, because that feels accurate for me. Yeah. It's funny, like I look at it now and I'm not afraid of my shadow anymore. In fact, I'm like, I've been actively working on befriending it for quite a few years, and even more intensely like the last few months. I've been really working on like modifying my reactions, or just kind of seeing where I'm coming from and what needs to be healed, because in my experience, it's the ego programs that show you where your shadows are. Right? It's sort of like the guidelines or the mile markers or the clue phone. Hello, pick up the clue phone. But yeah, like it kind of shows you where you need to work. Wherever you get triggered, it's pointing at something, right? And then the job is to be like, okay, so obviously my present is triggering me, but I'm reacting because of my past. And so doing the work to be like, okay, well, where does this come from? So this is the work from my perspective. This is the work that I was taught to do. So you collect data, right? The first step, self-awareness. I'm open. I'm courageous. I could do this. I can navigate the plums and my depth and all of this stuff. Like you gear yourself up and you get your support in your community and your therapist or whatever, or this really good book and a journal, like whatever your path is.
All the things.
All of those beginning steps. And you just begin observing. What do you like? What don't you like? What things upset you? Are there phrases? Are there ways of behavior? And then you get to ask, is it because you have that and you're not allowed to express it? Or do you have it and you don't even know you have it, so therefore it even makes you more angry because you're like, no, it's totally 100% over there, not in me. But I do hate to break it to you. If you get upset by it, you have it. You spot it, you got it. If you can see it, you have that somewhere inside of you, the programming. And whether you accept it or not, it's just part of it. And so when you're collecting the data and seeing what triggers you, you just kind of go all the way back. What was the first time you remember feeling this way? And who was it? Where were you? How old were you? Well, and just sort of like be with that. Right? And there's all sorts of things that you can do even while you're there, like with the reparenting and loving your inner child and giving them what you didn't get. So there's a lot of healing stuff that can happen in there, but it's really these ego programs that you get to map out, to figure out, because those are the things that are in your way of being authentic and happy oftentimes. So you learn to be grateful to the people that trigger you, which is a really weird transition to make. Usually you're really pissed off at everyone who upsets you or offends you, crosses your boundaries. Like, it brings this huge reaction. And that itself is really good information, you know? And so you just learn to process. But the ego programs are very important to notice, because oftentimes it's running you and you're not in control of it. If you remember this, when we started talking about reaction versus response, a reaction is instant. There's no thoughts. It's just, this happened, I say this. They do this, I behave in this way. This is the pattern. But that pattern, over time, tends to have diminishing returns. And it ends up being a problem for you, whether you're not getting the job promotions you want, you're not being in the relationships that you really desire. So these programs that have served you before, right, are no longer serving you. And so you can choose to dismantle them, to deactivate, to not feed them so they don't grow or cause such havoc.
Agreed. Quick question.
Yes.
I know you were mentioning using journaling as a tool. Kind of to the point that I was making earlier about how my initial viewpoint of shadow work was seeing these do this journal entry to kind of dive into things. A question that popped up for me is, have you had a case where you've done a journal entry on, I don't know, an ego program or something before you've really had the experience of experiencing it firsthand? I don't really know how to explain this. But I feel the thing with those journal entries, not to say that they're not helpful, and sorry, I don't know why this is
Keep going.
what I'm saying. I feel I've kind of gotten caught up in, if I have the awareness before it happens, then I'm good to go. You know, there's something to, yes, it's good to be aware, but I feel the journal entry experience of looking at your shadow versus experiencing something that triggers your shadow and really going through it live and going through the experience of allowing yourself to feel it, and then in the next instance to choose a different response. That's a whole separate thing.
It is.
So I guess I'm just wondering, have you done any of the shadow work awareness journaling for yourself? And how does it compare to the experience? I don't, maybe this doesn't.
I feel what you're saying.
Okay.
So let me.
And this might be more of a my generation thing that's just has constantly been on social media.
Right.
And I feel that kind of video that I'm referencing is maybe more popular for audiences like myself.
Right. But I do want to speak to the question.
Okay.
It's layers of awareness. So it depends on the tool and how you uncover. Sometimes it could be a person. Sometimes it's 3 different people telling you the same thing. The book, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting, is one of the first books I read when I moved out here on my journey of self-discovery and healing and all of this. And so because I was so numb, I didn't know how to feel, right? And so this book helps you with that. And so while you don't listen to what everybody says and you don't take that, but if enough people are telling you, who are not related, who are telling you the same thing about how you're showing up, you might want to pay attention.
Right.
And journaling for me personally has been a place where I can look. There's a lot of questions that I ask myself, and then I will answer myself or whatever kind of comes through. It just depends on how the awareness comes. But the important thing to remember are these couple of things, which is your mind is going to try to do everything it can possibly do to keep you distracted and not paying attention. So the fact that you pay attention, you collect the data, you're doing your meditation, the moment you name the program, the moment you can see it, it's already started losing the battle. It's already lost because now you see it and you cannot unsee it.
True. Facts.
Right? So it depends on how it comes into your awareness, whether it was a journal prompt, whether it was a video you watched, whether somebody just triggered the fuck out of you and you went to your therapist. Like, the information is going to come in. Now, remember, just because you see it does not mean it's done.
Yeah.
There's a whole dismantling process. And that's where the meditation comes in. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this beautifully, where in that level of meditation and that suggestibility, that's where that software, these ego programs, can be overwritten.
Yeah.
Or rewritten.
In like beta state or something? Or theta?
Theta.
Theta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's in that state of being through affirmations, through visualization, through grounding and other kind of healing things that you can create a new foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience is, okay, I see it after the fact. Like, had a big blow up, had this big, huge drama to do show, right? And then you're like, oh, fuck. Is that what that was? And you're like looking like, oh, dang, yeah, totally. It was like the more than, less than, or the burden program. I hate that one, where I always feel like a burden to everybody. I think a lot of people have that one. The perfection program. Did I say more than, less than? That's a really big one. So seeing it and naming it, gold star, great first step. Right? Actually, the first step is being courageous enough to do this work. Fucking go. You're awesome. But recognizing it, naming it, being with it is there. Now, in my experience, it doesn't make it stop. You're still going to be triggered. But that is the time. That's why you begin to be grateful for those that trigger you, because you can't actually heal it without it being active.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So things are going to keep coming up. The same patterns, the same cycles, the same kind of people are going to keep coming into your life so that you can work on this thing. And so what ends up happening is the whole thing runs and you see it afterwards. Fuck. Okay. I see it. And then same situation repeats. And then you get halfway through and you're in the argument and then you're like, oh no, it happened. And then you're like, fuck, and you pump the brakes and you're like, hold on, I need a time out. I have to do something. And you excuse yourself and you take responsibility. So that was halfway through and you're like, okay, I own that. That was my bad. That it was because of this. And you can process it properly. Like, this is a past thing that I thought was happening now, but you didn't even mean what I thought you meant, because that was my thing. Okay, fuck, okay, got this. And then, because you're on this and you're aware of it, you're going to start to want to react and you go, and then you shut your mouth and you're like, oh, it almost came out. Hold on, I need to regulate. Give me a second. I'm a little triggered right now. Right? So it's like you catch it sooner and sooner. Mm-hmm. It's a progressive thing. And then eventually you're going to see it want to engage and start, and it's going to like try to rev its engine and you're like, no. I'm good.
Yeah. Not today.
Not today. I got this.
Yeah.
I noticed that happen after or before I wrote that one poem, Remnants.
Yeah.
Remember that? Mm-hmm. That was the time where guilt and shame wanted to trigger, because somebody had said that they saw remnants of this old pain that I was healing and processing. And I'm like, nope. And I put it down, I put it aside. And then later it wanted to be processed because my body started to feel it and bring it up. And then the thoughts were cyclical. They kept repeating and repeating and repeating. And I'm like, oh, we're processing. Okay, I'll go write this out. I'll let you speak, right? So that you can look at whatever came up for you earlier. Mm-hmm. So that has been my experience. Much like it was explained to me, you can't work on a car unless you open the hood. Right? You can't expect to heal yourself and fix the engine or replace parts or anything if it's not open and activated.
Right.
And that's why healing, you have to go through it. You have to actually feel it again, because it's stuck inside and it wants to get out. your body doesn't want to hold on to that. It feels terrible. It can cause dis-ease and illnesses and mental blocks and creative blocks and relationship sabotage and all sorts of nasty repercussions, you know, but gotta feel it. You can't think your way out of it, which is why journaling will only get you so far. It's good for collecting data. It's good to have awareness around it. It's good to use affirmations, positive affirmations, to replace the negative thoughts, right? The old core beliefs, core negative beliefs. So it's a great, great tool, but it's not enough. The answer is never going to be one thing. This one thing, this one pill, this one meditation, this one process, this one book.
This one dark night of the soul.
Yes, the one dark night of the soul. That's not how it is.
Yeah.
It's just not how we're built as humans. It's a process. It's, like you said, an unfolding, a deepening, you know? And like, there have been plenty of things. I'm like, I thought I worked on that. Like, I got so good. And I did. And good job, Nicki. You did great. But this is deeper. Keep looking. You know, you did good. Just a few more layers here that you can stand to clear out. If you want to, no pressure. I can hold it if you really want to, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. That all makes a lot of sense. Thanks. Something that I feel like was coming into my brain as you were explaining all of that was, I really like the way that Teal Swan has kind of explained this. I very much appreciate her and her work. So apologies if I'm constantly referencing, but I always want to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
But what was ringing in my head was just how, I think the way she explains it is, well, trauma is generally, it's something that happens, usually of a negative feeling experience that doesn't have closure to it. So it stays open in us. Take these words loosely. This was my interpretation.
No, I like it. I'm feeling into it.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, oh. I was like, okay, gauging your facial expression. I was like, what is happening?
Like, yeah, no, you're right. That is. It's unresolved pain.
Unresolved conflict and unresolved pain.
Yeah.
And when we have trauma and that unresolved conflict or pain that's still existing in our body, the only real way for that to heal is to experience the direct opposite of whatever that experience was. So if we faced, I don't know, just in a really simple terms, if we did not receive a lot of love in our childhood, and we felt a large lack of love, to experience the opposite, feeling loved, will heal the trauma. And it will close, quote unquote, the wound. It's helpful. You know, this is important work that some of it definitely does need to happen with other people. We need to experience the opposite with and in conjunction with people. We are an interdependent species. But I think there are also a lot of things that we can offer to ourselves from ourselves that close those wounds as well. But
I think that's definitely part of it.
yeah,
I can see where she's coming from. And like how I interpret that is,
there's so much more to it, by the way.
oh, for fucking sure. She's been around for a long time. But just like what I take out of it, because I do like that. I like that as like a concept, because it reminds me that, you know, the trauma does live in your body. Like, it's present. That's part of what PTSD is the mind thinks at random, unpredictable moments that this trauma is now. It is in the present. And so a lot of healing modalities, from EMDR to other kinds of therapies, it helps your brain process and put those memories in the past where it belongs. This is something that happened to you. It is not happening right now. Part of the healing is honoring what is, what was, and meeting it, right? Going through it so that you can move past it. But what you were just talking about is having the opposite. If you weren't loved, you would be able to receive love. For me, what that talks about is making new reference points. So I had realized I had always wanted like a particular person to show up for me without me having to ask and surprise me and just want to be there for me because they loved me. And I could spend my whole life wishing for that and it won't heal me. So I had realized that, oh, shoot, my medicine here isn't to have them or anybody else show up for me. I had to show up for myself. I had to love myself. But you have these experiences that teach you it doesn't have to be that way because the mind is very rigid. And it says, when this happens, you do this. When they say this, they mean this. And there is no other way. There is no other reason. This is it.
Very black and white.
It is. And it's their lies. It's a lie of the mind. But as you heal and you create or you create space in yourself for new opportunities, like where maybe you are used to not receiving love, you're going to open yourself to receive love. And that itself is hard. Like anybody, have you ever tried giving somebody a compliment and they reject it?
I was the person who rejected.
Yeah. So it's like, even if we want to love you or show up in a certain way, if you're not prepared to receive it, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's the internal work is then not, but I just keep hearing convincing yourself that you're worthy of receiving this, that you're deserving of it, you know, as much as we want others to do that. But really it is about you giving that to you. Whatever you needed from the external world, you can provide for yourself in your internal world. And then that will grow. And then that just becomes who you are and what you offer, right? Because that's what you've desired so much. It's what you've wanted to create and experience. And then you get to then be that. So making new reference points is really helpful.
I like that. Yeah. I feel like there's so much we could talk about when it comes to the lies of the mind. And there are so many different ego programs out there. And the ego, if you guys haven't already experienced, can be really quite sneaky.
Oh, quite. Especially when you're onto it and you've been doing this work for a little bit, because you're used to, like, there's a mind thought or there's something that happens and then there's the trigger and the emotional download, and then you have to experience that, which, by the way, is very, very temporary. If you just allow it to be, it'll be gone in like 30 seconds. So if you can just breathe for 30 seconds, you can emotionally regulate and think in that time how you would like to respond instead of just react. But yeah, the lies of the mind. But yeah, eventually they will be quiet and the mind will no longer give you the thoughts that give you the emotional download and the trigger. It will just happen when you become aware.
More aware of them.
Yeah. And then it's like, wait a second, I am pissed off right now. What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, it moves down from the head into your body almost.
Yeah. My old teacher used to say the mind learns to use the back door.
Yeah.
It doesn't go through the front of the mind, the prefrontal cortex, where all your thoughts are like ticker tape. You know, like it just sort of streams down. It's like it just ever so slyly just goes through the back door and there's nothing associated with it. And it just sort of happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck, what was that? What am I doing?
Yeah. It's like instead of an anxious thought being like, oh my God, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and this whole snowballing in your head verbally, it's just fight or flight.
Yes.
And you're like, why?
And that's usually when you be like, okay, who came in the room?
Yeah.
You know,
What?
where am I going right now that's upsetting me?
What program has snuck in without my knowing? Let me look
Yeah.
behind me.
Let's look at and name some of our programs. This is a fun
Love
game.
this. I had that in the back of my mind. I was like, I hope she gets what I'm putting out there and it's gonna segue.
I hear you.
Good job.
I heard it. I'm there with you.
Cool.
I feel like one of the very early ones that I was able to identify was burden. Burden is a huge one. That's what keeps you from getting and receiving the help that you need. That keeps you from reaching out and being supported and loved in a way that would be fulfilling and gratifying and just loving it. So, like the fear like, oh no, I'm too much, right? That's part of it. So the burden is like a big umbrella. And then it has so that's like the big program. And then underneath it is I'm not worthy of attention, or I'm too much. I'm too big. I'm too excessive. I'm too this, right? Or I'm not enough. There's all...
More than less than? Does that fall under this?
That's a whole other one.
Okay.
But I feel like there's some parallels, some intersecting lines with some of these. You have the big programs and you have the pivotal, the outside ones that protect the big one, because the closer you get, the more dangerous it is. But yeah, burden was a big one. Judgment. I actually do want to say judgment is a program because that's taught. That's not inherent. We don't have judgment, I feel like, innately. I mean, maybe discerning to you don't die.
I was about to
can I
say,
eat that?
Judgment is an important survival tool and skill.
A survival skill.
Discernment.
Yes. Yes.
Which I feel like is adjacent to judgment.
But the way that we've learned to use it has become weaponized.
Correct. Yeah.
And judgment also disconnects you, right? And judgment actually is part of the more than less than program. So more than less than, I see this one a lot just because this is where I grew up and I feel like a lot of people have. I think it's just a human thing at this point. But when people feel less than, they don't like themselves, they're insecure, they have low self-confidence, bullies tend to fall into this a lot. They feel less. They're harmed. They're not doing well. In order for them to feel better, somebody has to be less than them so that they can be then more. And so the judgment comes in because that's how you target. That's how you, validate your decision to use it or accost somebody or, act out.
You justify
Thank you. There's the word.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you justify your actions based on your judgment. Oh, well, they did this and that's wrong because I said so, because that's what I was taught. So judgment disconnects and keeps you separate and is a big, big tool in the more than less than program.
Judgment has been a very prominent ego program of mine, but self-inflicted.
Yeah.
I've been
the kindest people.
Real big bully to me.
Yes. And I find this a lot. When you grow up in judgment, but you're a kind soul, you don't want to put it outside of you because you love people. And especially if you're a people pleaser or a number of other things, you would
I never want to hurt anyone.
Right. You never want to hurt them. But you will do it to yourself because it apparently it serves you somehow, somewhere. And that's what you
apparently
get to look
I'm
at.
not a person to this program.
Right.
I don't count.
Right?
Wild.
How many people, they would never treat others the way that they treat themselves.
Yep. So burden is a heavy one for you.
Burden was.
A big one.
It was. Yeah. I've really demoted that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there. Okay, so I'm looking. I'm like, how demoted did I make you? Right? If it was a 10 before, I'm gonna say it's around a 2 or a 3 at this point, because I'm still learning and I'm still practicing, and I still sometimes feel like I'm too much. But I have surrounded myself with people who love me, and who don't think that. and who allow me to practice outing my programs and be like, okay, this is what my mind is saying is being garbage right now, but I'm not trying to judge it. I'm just trying to let you know this is what it's saying to me, that you don't want me to keep talking, that you're done listening, that I've shared enough. And then I'll get side eyes like, oh gosh, please, I love it. Keep going, But yeah, for me, asking for help, I think I might have been talking to you about a little bit about this, like in the recent months and stuff that I've been working on.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't want to have to ask. I've already asked. Why do I have to keep asking? Why do I have to ask? And it's like, I had to keep looking at that. So I literally was writing out, what is my issue? Why don't I want to ask for things? And I got to my answers. And then it was like, again, still, he's like, you just have to ask. And I'm like, fine. I will ask, and it's not too much. I'm not being a burden because I have so many needs. Drama. But it's all in fun. But no, I do that to like make light of my mind. Like I'll do fun reenactments.
Thoroughly enjoyable, by the way.
Thank you so much. It loves it. I like to save my drama for reenactments and for entertainment purposes. Never in like real life situations. There's a time and a place.
Yes.
And that is the time when you're making fun of it and trying to break up the energy around it. Laughter is great medicine for that. So yeah, so I guess I am actually still working on that burden program, but I'm getting so much better at it. And so I have lots of opportunities to ask for help and receive support and ask and not feel like I'm too much. But I will sometimes still out it. Be like, is this too much? And they're like, no, I love this. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And I feel like each time that you out it and you actually ask the person that you're asking to receive from, and they tell you such like a quick and firm, like, no, that's not too much. That just, it's filling up.
That's the new reference point.
Yeah, exactly. You're experiencing the opposite more and more and more until that becomes
normal.
That becomes your normal reality.
Yeah. And it's a slow shift. But that's why the self-awareness is so beautiful, because you don't take stock of growth over days or weeks. Every couple of months,
Or if you're me, never.
I'm calling bullshit on that one. Excuse you.
I only said that as a clear example of one of my ego programs. That was for the benefit of everyone.
You're welcome.
I'm great. Thank you so much. I'm just kidding. No, I'm outing the fact that I have a hard time acknowledging when I have hit really good milestones or where I've had a lot of growth.
I recognize this.
Yes.
I'm very well aware of this one. I remember when you named it, or when you found it.
Yeah.
But that's
anywho,
one of
just wanted to out that one.
That is really good work, though. Also, like that's really important, and I feel like that's what we offer each other in like the healing community, or like at least in my people, right? Like, I love reflecting and like taking stock of changes.
Yeah.
Because I started having these like little celebrations just within myself when I would meet a conflict with grace. Like, do you remember?
That's freaking awesome.
Do you remember?
I just have recent experience in this. It's real hard. Kudos to you.
Thanks. Like, do you remember when the studio got robbed before the cameras got put in? Do you remember?
That was before my time, but I heard
your
quite the stories.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
So we found out that morning because someone went in and called Josh, and Josh is like, "What the fuck?" And so
Josh is Nicki's husband.
So he found out, and he tells me, and I was just like, really? That sucks.
How curious.
I was like, how curious. He's like, I knew it. And he was just like kind of going on. He had his moment. And then he kind of joined me on the, well, I guess this is what insurance is for. So this big thing came up, and we handled it without getting triggered in front of anybody. Like, he had his initial feelings, but then it was also like, Well, fuck, what are you going to do? Like, getting angry and mad and pissed off about it really isn't going to solve the fucking problem.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, it just been like, well, I'm definitely getting, now that the toilet's fixed and the mold is gone, like, now I can get people in here to put in the cameras that I was already planning on doing, but damn it, I'm late. But you just kind of like take it in stride and look at it for what it is and realize that everything's okay. You can still have the equipment replaced. And yes, there's work involved. You got to call the police and they got to do the things. You got to make the reports so you can get the insurance. But we were reflecting that night and we were like, huh. Everybody's been saying we've been acting so chill about this, and they're really surprised. They were so surprised that we weren't upset. And that was new for all of them that were here at the time. Mm-hmm. And we're like, why? What would that solve? It's much better to be clear-headed so that you can be solution-oriented and so you can do the things you need to do. Why get all emotionally distressed?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the key things that really allowed you to be able to move into that place of chill around something so
violating.
Yeah.
That's really what we felt. That was what we processed first.
Fair. Yeah. But I mean, I feel like that does just go to show how helpful and useful learning how to process your own emotions is, and being able to regulate and feel your feelings. And that is what moves you on to a more, I don't want to say productive energy, but it can definitely lead to solution-based place, which in this particular case ended up being really helpful, because then you can handle all of the nitty-gritty and the details and taking care of it from a much more calm and manageable space.
Josh used to reflect a lot to me, because I would get really triggered after talking to like some family on the phone. I would be taken out for like a couple of days sometimes. I'd have to like recover, you know, from those triggers. It would take me some time. And then I go off and I do my work, and I'm on my healing journey, and I'm having my help in my community and doing all this stuff. And then over time he goes, huh, you know what I've noticed? You don't get taken out as long as you used to. Now it's like an hour. Like, you're like, okay, I need some space. I need to go process some of these emotions. Excuse me. I'm going to go meditate. And then I come back and I have the rest of my day, you know? So learning to regulate your emotions and have them and direct them into the earth, or like whatever your process and whatever your new positive coping skills are, the more you use them, the better they work for you. And that you don't need to use them as often. It's then becomes like maintenance or as needed,
right?
But they're always there. But I do love seeing that, like, 8 years ago, I would have handled that so much differently. That would not have been a good day for me, you know? But now it's like okay, I'll get through it. This fucking sucks. I'm annoyed.
What a powerful shift.
I know.
I'm sure
it feels so good.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you.
It's gotta be so rewarding.
To not be at the mercy of other people's emotions or expectations or manipulation. Oh my God, I feel so much more free. Like, I'm not asking the universe to test me. Thank you. I don't need someone coming in here and being like, let me test how strong you are and see if you don't move. I'm like, I have plenty of opportunities to practice. I don't need it to ask for it. But I feel more confident that I'm able to handle things better than I have ever been able to before.
Yeah.
And I will continue to grow it as needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So shout out coping tools and helping us along the way when we're looking at our ego programs and learning to reprogram them and working with our shadow and learning to befriend it.
Well, did you want to share one? I have another big one that has been one of the harder ones for me to learn how to manage, but I have a much better relationship with it now. I can talk about that later, but is there something that you have that you want to share or talk about?
I don't know. I actually feel like I haven't really gone through and like labeled all of my ego programs. I feel like I've just kind of dealt with what has come up as it's come up.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Love that. Don't need to go searching for you. Just let it sort of show itself.
Yeah. I definitely searched for a while, or thought I was searching. Yeah. That was interesting, feeling like I'm under a microscope all the time. But shifting to a place of, I will look at this and I will heal this when it is time for me to look at this and when it is time for me to heal this, because it will come up in my physical reality.
Yes, it will express itself
let
physically.
Me know. So been trying to shift more into that space. But I don't know. I feel... Nikki, you know me very well. What would you say are like my top 3 prominent ego programs? Because the judgment and the perfectionism, that one's definitely up there. Like, I have a very hyperactive mind in that regard. It very much has desired that perfectionism. There's also an anxiety and control program that I feel is pretty up there. Are there any?
The only one that's coming to me was one of the first ones that I saw you get emotional around when you received it was feeling worthy of support.
Oh, receiving. Oh, I've been working on that one. My ego does not like it, which I do very much resonate with the burden one. A lot of guilt and shame programs.
Yeah.
But we're working on it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You are. I'm always observing you work on these things.
Yeah. I feel like I would say that those 3 have definitely been the most prominent and most recurring in my life and have been for the last couple of years. I feel like these are usually the things that, if you want to say, get in my way, if you will.
Isn't it interesting, like, when you look at something, you just keep asking, like, what's underneath it? Because, like, the receiving is definitely under the umbrella of burden.
Okay. Oh, actually, hold on.
Yeah.
Follow-up question to naming the ego programs. Do we want to talk about how each program, what that reflects as the deeper shadow aspect? Because I thought you were saying earlier that the ego programs are kind of like a glimpse into your shadow.
It can help point you down there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like a road map, like a sign.
Okay.
You know, it helps kind of point the way to the shadow. Here's one of like my big ones. This was like really hard for me.
Yeah.
And that was it's manipulation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think you've heard me talk about this a lot. I used to be really angry. I used to have a lot of anger, but I've really worked through a lot of that. I'm feeling about it. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty clear. And there's only one thing that will really make me angry, and that's people manipulating other people as a weapon negatively, like emotionally manipulating, physically manipulating against their will, without your lack of consent. Yeah, I remember that one being really hard with my therapist being like, it's not bad, it's just a tool. And I'm like, excuse me? I've never seen it being used for good. And then I get reminded, oh yeah, I do manipulate my toddler into brushing her teeth for her own good. So I had to learn to look at the tools or the mechanisms or the programs without judgment and just a tool, like a hammer. A hammer is great at building a house. A hammer can also be a weapon and kill somebody. It depends on how you use it. What are your intentions? Sometimes it could be accidental. You dropped it off of a roof and it landed on something. You know, it's not the thing that's inherently bad. It's how it's being used. And so that's why, like, when you're going through this and you're naming your programs and you're, you know, becoming cozy and chummy with it, trying to get to the bottom of it and dismantle it, honoring how it served you in the past.
Yeah.
Is really important.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself the question, does it still serve me? And if it does, keep using it. But make a conscious choice. And if it's not the best way to use it, that's your choice. But you have to live with the consequences of that. And are you willing to pay that price? You know? So when I was looking at manipulation, it was really hard because I'm like, it just makes me so angry. It just makes me so angry. But it was also me fearing that I didn't have enough power to stand up for myself, that I couldn't have these boundaries, because boundary work is really a helpful tool navigating this stuff so that, one, you have enough space to heal without constantly being triggered and harmed to keep you roped in and connected to this toxic relationship.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do need the space to really look at it. I don't know. I learned to be okay with it. Like, yep, manipulation is a tool that we're actually born with. I actually do think this. Did I talk about this before? Was it on here or was it somewhere else that I was talking about this? But
It's not ringing a bell for me.
Babies are manipulative.
Oh, that is now ringing a bell.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're born having needs and expressing those needs. Like, my diaper. I'm hungry. I have bad gas.
Oh, we did talk about this on here.
Right?
Yeah.
So manipulation isn't inherently bad. It's just how you use it. And so what I started noticing was when I was working on this, people would not do it around me, but I would begin to hear about it. There was somebody in particular who used to work around us, a couple people that became quite manipulative. But they would never do it in front of me because I can see. And I probably would have called them out, be like, what's that? You know, like, because by that time they had already established that I can see, right? That I can see people and read energy. They started hiding it and hiding from me. And they wouldn't do it in front of me, but I would start to hear about it. And I'm like, and it would make me angry, which that became my red flag, that when I became angry about something, somebody was being manipulative. And so I just find it really interesting. No, it wasn't. I find it really interesting because I haven't had that experience in quite some time. But also my boundaries are so much better, you know, and I don't allow people around me who are emotionally manipulative. It just doesn't feel good. I'm a big fan of making invitations. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to show up. You don't need to change for me. You don't need to do anything. But I'll invite you. If you want to do this, I'm here. I'm open. I don't find a use for that tool. But oh, can I use it? Oh, I'm still using it. Accidentally. Like, and that's what I'm still working on. Because manipulation is, for me, stems from control. Right?
Yeah.
In order for me to feel safe, because I did not feel safe growing up. And a lot of traumatized children who grow up who don't feel safe need to control their environment. And so that includes everybody in it. But that also doesn't really feel good for me, which was so confusing because I'm behaving in ways that do not make any sense to me, that are not integral to my core of I am love and light. How am I being a raging bitch right now? What the fuck is that? I guess I'm not love. I guess I have no light. I am just a piece of shit, right?
What a spiral.
This is what happens. But that's what happens when you're triggered.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to hold space or ground or process. But even still, like, I still am. I still catch myself in these moments. But I'm at the point where I'm like, now I'm halfway through it. And I'm like, oh, damn it. I did it again, guys. Fuck, I'm sorry. I'm being a toxic potato. Give me some space. You know, I need to go vent off by myself. I am not safe for consumption because I start reacting. But what I've been able to start doing is seeing who I'm being, which is really interesting. I'm like, okay, this feels familiar. Who is this? Who am I being? Who am I pretending to be? Who am I channeling right now? You know, and it's really weird when the two things are happening at the same time and like one brings over the other. It's a mess. It's an emotional mess, and it takes some time to discern and decipher and de-encrypt, you know, like what the hell is going on.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's so frustrating and you feel so crazy and like, how can I act like this? How can I yell? How can I be so harsh when with everyone else I am so loving and compassionate? But then it's like, oh, well, you are reenacting what you received as a child. I'm like, that sucks. It sucks to go through it again, and it sucks to put my kid through it. But I am doing things differently. I apologize. I take personal responsibility for how I show up in her life and, you know, make amends and talk to her about how to not, take it on, that it's not her, that it's mine. I'm doing some things, I'm healing, which is why we came up with our code words to like, go protect yourself, go put up your boundaries, I'm a toxic potato, like, just, yeah, I love that. I really do love that. It's like my favorite thing.
Seems pretty handy.
It really is. When you have like a shorthand like piece, like lets people know where you are, they're like, oh wait, I'm gonna go boundaries up.
Yep.
Yeah. So that I hate that one. I hate when I am not myself. And I don't like being triggered into that state of being, But what I have learned to do is to cope through it and using compassion. I allow myself to be compassionate to the part of me that was hurting, that was acting out, that was wanting attention, and it just misdirected it.
Yeah.
Like, that does not belong on my family. It's not where it belongs. It doesn't belong on me either. So let's give it some light, give you some space to speak your truth and how you feel, how you would have wished it would have happened, and then imagine a different ending, or like whatever the tools are, but just giving that part of you the love that it didn't get before. And that really helps.
Yeah. Something that you were saying a little bit earlier, and also just now, but as a part of that self-compassion piece, when looking at our ego programs and holding space for our shadow, one thing that I've found that has really worked for me and felt a lot more manageable to like actually love and integrate these aspects of myself into a deeper sense of wholeness and togetherness within me has really been that question that you said of just asking it, oh, how have you been protecting me? How have you been serving me? Because the program wouldn't still be running if it weren't serving you in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that out of each of these little programs that we're still getting, but like you said, just asking, oh, like once you do end up having that awareness around a particular program, really just acknowledging its usefulness and then asking really gently, is this something that is still helping me? And is this how I want to continue to support myself? I think really just dissolves whatever emotional charge there is within the ego program. And I feel like once you just acknowledge that it's been working so hard to be there for you,
And to protect you.
And to protect you and keep you alive and to keep you safe, it usually dissolves pretty gently after that.
Acknowledgement is incredibly healing. Oftentimes that's all the body needs, is that acknowledgement. I'm like, oh my God, you've been working so hard. And thank you so much for protecting me. But you can stand down for now. I will let you know if I need this. Because I'll tell you, I don't mind having the manipulation program now. Because I choose not to use it, just like I choose not to use judgment. I still have it. This is the thing. When you decommission things, they don't completely go away.
Right.
Because they've been programmed. They just get deactivated until you need it. There might be a situation where I need to be a raging bitch at somebody to get their attention.
Yeah.
And I can choose to do that and live with the consequences.
You can go to Finder and you can type in the program.
Right. Hold on. Please hold.
Yep. Scroll through the applications.
Like, I can stand up for myself. It's also harder to be manipulated when you're aware of the program.
Yeah.
It loses its power. You're like, I see what you're trying to do there. It's not going to work on me, but nice try. No, thank you. I will not be coming in. Like whatever the boundary is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can choose to use it or not. And there really is no wrong decision because it's all experimental. It's like, when is it purposeful? When is it helpful? How do you want to use it? How does it feel when you use it? Because like I would use things, I would get really harsh, or I would get stuck in a loop, or like the reenactment as I expressed it. And at that point, I'm watching. So I'm always like super conscious of like what's happening, and I've hated it where I can't stop it, where it's just running.
Yeah.
And
It's
there's
an
no
automatic.
amount of brakes that I could be pumping, because every time I pump the brakes, it just looks like another program of me trying to run away. So I would look like I'm trying to run away to have space and to regulate, but then also that's the old program of don't face your shit. So then I have to U-turn and be like, I want to run. I need some space, but I don't want to run. So I'm going to be here and we're going to talk about this.
Colliding programs.
Seriously, this is what makes you feel crazy. It's like when you're trying to do things differently in the moment, to try a new tool or to be present or to ground or to like whatever the thing is, you feel crazy. So if you feel crazy in your healing journey, I actually find that to be a really good sign. You're doing something right, and just keep responsible, keep compassionate, resolve to not use it if it's not serving you. I don't want to wilt my daughter. And I've watched her wilt. And it's funny how certain things come out at night in certain areas. And so like all of this tracking and being like, okay, how do we mitigate this? How do we resolve this? How can we set up our life to support all of our needs being met? What's important to me? Having my child get enough sleep and good hygiene is important. Having a fight about it before bed is not. There's better ways and times.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
again, as I'm sure we've been saying every single episode, there is so much more that I feel like there is to this, and so much more that we could talk about. But I guess to wrap this particular episode up, is there anything else that you feel is important, or anything in your heart that wants to be shared about shadow work, ego programs, and accepting the polarity of dark and light in ourselves, on this planet, and across the universe?
I feel pretty content and complete with our conversation today. I feel like I got out what has been kicking around in my brain the last few days as we've been preparing for this.
Good.
But what I do want to say is we all have a shadow. That does not make us a bad person. We might have perceivable negative behaviors, but again, that doesn't make you a bad person. You just might have some bum programming. And if you look at it and you can put it to rest and choose something else, amazing. Whatever is more in alignment with who you are. But don't beat yourself up because of the things you've been through and how sometimes you behave. We all slip up. I am not always my best self. I'm not. I'm not perfect. I'm a human. I'm still working things out. I'm still doing stuff. But I know that I am at the core loving and kind and funny.
And so much light.
So much light. But I'm not always that. And that's okay.
It is.
Yeah.
I do really wish there was more understanding of our shadow aspects. And I know that I've really just begun to scrape the surface. I feel like I've reached the point where I've become fairly aware of a good chunk of my ego programs, and I feel like I've gotten a lot of points to what my shadow is, and I feel like I'm at the start of my journey towards really accepting and really doing the diving work to bring that love to my shadow and the dark parts of me and to accept all of me. And I'm really excited for that journey. I just am now having an ego program of self-consciousness where I'm like, how was that related to what Nicki just said? How did I get here? Why did I all of a sudden start sharing this? I don't know.
Wanted to come out.
It wanted to come out.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I do feel, even though like I am just at this beginning stage of, I think, really integrating the darkness, the darker side of me, I do also wish that there was, I guess, more understanding and acceptance of the darkness and the shadow within all of us. Like, I feel like there's such an air of so many people spiritually bypassing in culture right now, especially across social media. I feel like that's kind of like a big thing, and it's kind of going under a lot of our radars because the ego is sneaky. It comes in the back door. It's hard to see it until it
so
really
flashy,
shows itself
and it makes
to you.
so much sense. Like, yeah, positive vibes only.
Yeah.
But that's very spiritual bypassing, because that you're omitting so much of what the human experience is, and we're here to experience all of it.
Yes.
We're not just here for love, light, joy, and happiness. While that might be my personal life goal, I'm here for all of it, whatever serves me in my highest good. And a final reminder that it is in the dark. We don't need to be afraid of the dark. I know we can't see, we don't know where we are, but through faith and protection and boundaries and like, it's okay and holding your light, but it's in the darkness where you grow your light, where you find your resilience and the strength to overcome. So the darkness is not something to fear, but to use to grow you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can really truly embody unconditional love if we're only showing love to the good feeling parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We need to accept all of it.
All of it. There's room for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like we were both a little curious, I guess, to see where this conversation was going to go, because it can be a heavier topic. But I don't know. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels like just an air of acceptance, and like this is just a part of
like,
the journey
this
here.
This is our job. Like, you understand, like, this work that we, like, this episode.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
It is. Constantly.
You know? Constantly. And
trying to like mirror to each other like our points of progress and like, oh, look at how good you got it at managing this program. Look at you go. That's like our whole dynamic.
Support and holding space and allowing what is to be there without needing or wanting to change it. You know, because it has something to say. So become curious and listen to what it has to say. You know, anytime you act out or the things come up, just ask yourself questions. What do you need? What's hurting? How can I help you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big job.
It is.
But it's totally rewarding. I cannot recommend enough. In fact, healers are my favorite people. Anybody walking the healing path, you're just my people. Like, being able to look at things and own it and take responsibility and be like, oh man. But then also the good stuff too. You know?
Yeah.
It makes it easier. That once you can accept the shadow, it really does make it easier to accept the light. You know, it's a weird thing like that. And sometimes accepting the light will also help you love your shadow. Because it's like, I got this. You can quiet it down. I don't need a 16-year-old version of me cursing someone out. Okay? I'll write about it later. But I have to be a good example to my child. So thank you so much, Maggie, always for being here and showing up. And thank you to all the listeners who are tuning in and holding space for this and looking at your own shadow work and where you are and hopefully doing it with as much compassion as possible.
Yes. And looking and diving into our shadows is what is helping to bring a lot more light into this world. So
indeed.
Shout out you. Shout out everyone. Everyone doing this work alongside us. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you are interested in joining us for next week, Nikki and I are going to be talking about different modalities and strategies of healing. So talking a little bit about therapy and the different types of therapies that are out there, stuff like EMDR work, trauma healing, and just all of the things.
Just a bunch of resources and opportunities to heal and different ways to go about it. So, yes. Have a beautiful week.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.
Nailed it.